Hey guys, how are we doing? So we're back with another Mother's Basement video. I haven't done one of these in a while. I think it's going to be quite interesting because this is it's titled "This Pokemon manga is actually pretty good." Oh, I can't see the whole title. It's da da da. But it's weird because I was watching Rant Cafe last week, and then a few other YouTubers have mentioned how good the Pokemon Adventures manga actually is. So it'd be cool to actually have someone explain why. It's actually pretty good. So, let's see what Mother's Basement has to say.
So there's this thing called Pokemon. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's pretty popular, though.
It's quite popular.
Big in Japan. And like most things that are big in Japan, over the years it's earned itself a manga adaptation, too. Or over 100. The first of these was Pokemon Pocket Monsters, a strange, comedically toned manga that borrows some stylistic elements from Dragon Ball,
it does.
and in which all the Pokemon could talk and coexisted with regular animals.
That's weird.
It was really weird and never made it outside of Japan.
Okay.
The first Pokemon manga that did reach North American comic shops, and the first that I read as a kid, was The Electric Tale of Pikachu, which roughly followed the plot of the anime, and which ended up having substantially more plot on account of being drawn by prolific hentai artist Toshihiro Ono, aka Kamiran Jaku Sanpei, who once complained that he had to redraw basically every page from the North American release, and you can see why, since that shirt has Pokeballs for nipples.
Oh my god!
I guess that explains all those panels of Misty slowly changing into her bathing suit. Those two manga were just the tip of the iceberg for Pokemon. Before too long, there were dozens of series and one-shots spanning multiple imprints and an impressive range of genres. There were Pokemon 4 Comas, manga adaptations of the movies, separate Ani manga made with film screenshots, manga based on spin-off games like Mystery Dungeon, Pokemon Ranger, and Colosseum, a shoujo series called Magical Pokemon Journey, Phantom Thief Pokemon 7, a single-volume story about a Magic Kaito-esque Lucario trainer who steals from other thieves, a Yu-Gi-Oh! Knockoff set in the real world called Aim to be a Card Master, Pokemon Card GB the Comics, a one-shot adaptation of the Pokemon TCG Game Boy game, How I Became a Pokemon Card, which just explains the lore behind the art on various Pokemon cards, and which ran for 6 volumes and 38 chapters somehow. Actually,
there's so many different mangas.
And the list goes on and on.
It's crazy.
And on. That's not even all of the manga about the trading cards. Of course, there were plenty of adaptations of the mainline Pokemon games as well, and of those, far and away, the best and most enduring is Pokemon Special, or as it's known in North America, Pokemon Adventures. A lot of you are probably familiar with this manga already. It's one of the most widely read of the Pokemon adaptations by far, but its readership represents just a fraction of the full Pokemon fanbase, and that's why I'm making this video. Because while, yes, reading is for nerds, every Pokemon nerd owes it to themselves to give this manga a read. For younger fans, it will show you a side of the Pokemon world you've never seen, and for older fans, it will feel like coming home for the first time in decades. I love the world of the Pokemon anime, like a whole bunch.
Yeah, it's class.
I made a whole video about how great Sun and Moon is that you can't watch because, oh man, are the rights holders for the anime strict. But there's always been a bit of a disconnect between that world and the one in the games. It's a gap that the games have attempted to bridge over the years by emulating more and more aspects of the anime, but in doing so, I think they've lost a bit of what used to make them special. The world of red, blue, gold, and silver has its own unique flavor. It represents a more naturalistic, holistic vision of late 90s Japan, holding on to its boxy, utilitarian, industrialized cities, but connecting them through walking paths and nature trails made for people and living creatures instead of roads made for machines. Aside from bikes, the only vehicles you see in those games are a single-line bullet train, a big ship, and one pickup truck that sadly does not have a view under it. It was a world where Gary Oak's car full of groupies would have felt even more out of place than it does in the anime. Red and Blue, and later Gold and Silver, as 8-bit RPGs, were working with very limited tools in defining their world, but they still managed to make each region and town you visited in your Pokemon journey feel distinct from the others.
Yeah, they were all different when you knew where you were.
Isolation and claustrophobia that you get walking through the paved, enclosed, uniform streets
when you're going
of
in the caves.
City that stands in contrast to the more open, green layout of neighboring Celadon and Fuchsia and the waterways of Cerulean. In emulating the polished, colorful, utopian world of the anime, Fire Red and Leaf Green, and later Heart Gold and Soul Silver and the Let's Go games, strip that feeling away. And I like the world they build in its place, but it's not the one I explored as a kid. But that world does still exist and come alive in the pages of Pokemon Adventures.
Oh,
In fact,
cool.
Satoshi Tajiri, the series creator, purportedly said that it's the closest any adaptation of Pokemon has come to representing his original vision. You can see that clearly in the background art. The houses and other buildings we see are almost one-to-one translations of the sprite work in the games.
That's cool.
The same damn Snorlax can be found lounging on the route to the right of Vermilion City. Gyms have busts of their leaders by the entrance, just like the weird statues in the game.
Oh, that's so
Oak Slab
awesome.
even has the signs and the round pylons in front of it, though the inside does look a bit messier and more lived in than the games, with books strewn all over the place and disorganized shelves. That's kind of a running trend here. The cities around these locations aren't generally rendered in a lot of detail, and a lot of the manga does take place in open spaces like forests and fields, not unlike the anime, but enough is filled in to make the cities more believable without creating a disconnect from the smaller, simpler
this
locations
looks so
we
good.
saw in the games. Okay, I just want to pause the video for a sec. I was just doing research to see if the manga artist drew from the real-world locations in Japan's Kanto region that the game's cities are based on for the manga. They didn't, but I found out something else that's neat. Pewter City is based on Maebashi in Gunma, which means that Mount Moon is based on a real nearby mountain with a crater lake at the summit,
That's
Mount
cool.
Takagi. Yeah, the same one from Initial D. That's not relevant to anything, I just think it's really cool and I wanted to share it. Also, I can't stop thinking about Takumi trying to keep the water in the cup while dealing with goddamn Zubats, and now, neither can you. Anyway, through this world we follow a young, bright-eyed, slightly cocky trainer from Pallet Town named Red, who, after almost accidentally robbing Professor Oak one day, impresses the Pokemon researcher by connecting with a scared Bulbasaur and is subsequently tasked with traveling the world to fill out the Pokedex. But of course, he's not the only young trainer trying to make a name for himself in that way. Oak's grandson, Blue, a cold and arrogant but undeniably skilled young trainer, is also aiming for gym dominance and Pokedex completion. And Red also has to contend with Green, a flirtatious Pokemon thief who actually did rob Professor Oak, stealing his Squirtle, and who has an array of tricks at her disposal that will put Jessie and James to shame. Well, further shame anyway. Speaking of them, throughout this journey, Red constantly finds himself butting heads with Team Rocket. But Jessie and James are nowhere in sight, and the team isn't just a group of random bad guys working under one leader. In Pokemon Adventures universe, Team Rocket runs a massive underground conspiracy that encompasses the whole of the Kanto region and includes several gym leaders: Koga, Lieutenant Surge, Sabrina, all the mean-looking ones, who use their power and influence to facilitate their crimes. This interpretation of the gym leaders might seem a bit strange if your impressions of these characters are mainly based on the anime, but it works surprisingly well. It transforms all of the one-note gym leaders, both the villains and
gives them more of a personality and stuff.
Into proper characters with a part to play in the larger overarching narrative, instead of just guys who you fight between all of the other guys you fight and then forget about immediately. This way of approaching the story adds a lot of life and character to the world, and from Ruby and Sapphire onward, almost every new Pokemon game has made a similar effort to give at least some of the gym leaders more to do than just stand around waiting for you. Perhaps this manga had an influence on the game's writers. And that's kind of just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to interesting changes that Pokemon Adventures makes. It isn't just content to translate the world of Pokemon as it exists in the games. It also expands on that world in meaningful, clever ways, and that goes beyond the characters. It runs with the idea of Team Rocket doing cruel experiments on Pokemon, for instance, giving us more than just Mewtwo and maybe Ditto. In an early chapter, Red helps an experimental Eevee that's been altered so that it can assume any of its evolutionary forms at will. In a similar vein, the manga's stated reason for Giovanni's absence from Viridian Gym is that he's been running experiments in a nearby forest and doesn't want nosy trainers poking around. The way certain badges would allow you to control higher-level traded Pokemon in the games, which was originally just a gating mechanic designed to discourage players from trying to trade around the difficulty curve, becomes a canonical power of the badges in the manga, and the motivation for Team Rocket's founder founding lay in Blaine, Giovanni, Sabrina, Lieutenant Surge, and Koga's desire to combine their badges' powers and use them to their own ends. When they have enough together, the badges allow Team Rocket to control even the minds of the legendary birds.
Oh my god, that's so cool.
Harness their powers in order to enhance their other Pokemon's abilities.
This is epic.
And in the culmination of their big battle with Red, Blue, and Green, the badge's power is ultimately used to fuse the birds together into a three-headed monstrosity whose Pokemon name is probably Kill Me. These are out there concepts, to be sure, but they feel like a natural extension of the somewhat bare-bones environmental storytelling we saw in the base games. Ideas that might well have been implemented there if not for the limitations of cartridge memory and the need for every Pokemon fought in the game to be collectible. I definitely would not want that monstrosity in my Pokedex. Likewise, the series pushes the concept of Pokemon battles well past the limitations of turn and stat-based combat and one-on-one encounters, transforming them into more dynamic, involved affairs. Trainers have to think about their own positioning as well as their Pokemon's, and when, where, and how they choose to throw out their next Pokeball can have just as much of an impact on a fight as type advantage, move choice, or power level. And Pokemon moves are given a lot of creative applications beyond simply dealing damage. This manga features intense quick-draw Poke showdowns, where the physical capabilities and quick reflexes of the trainers are key in securing their victory. And when fights get dirty, it's not just the Pokemon that are placed in danger. Red frequently comes under threat from wild Pokemon. There's a chapter set in the Safari Zone where he's almost eaten alive by Weepinbells, and when battling Team Rocket, they attack him directly in sometimes
instead of the Pokeball.
ways.
What?
Yes, this manga contains plenty of instances of Pokemon being used for assault and even straight-up attempted murder against children. In case the cute, simple art style didn't give it away, Pokemon Adventures is still very family-friendly, but in a manga kind of way.
Right.
Not the internationally palatable, censor-approved, watered-down, cartoony way that the anime is. The world of the manga is dark. It has real systemic problems. It's not sanitized and safety-padded like the world of the anime. And that leads to some incredibly creative, cool story beats, and some things that could really only happen in the world of Pokemon, but that never do because it's always shooting for a G instead of a PG-13. To give you an idea, here's a brief list of some of the cool and risque things that happen in Pokemon Adventures. Red reads a weird Pokemon tabloid with a front-page story about a lady who takes a bath with her Tentacool for its implied anime tentacle reasons.
Oh my god!
This book gets decapitated by Blue's Charmeleon, and we get a full view of its severed spine and guts as blood and venom pools beneath its twitching corpse. In the same story arc, it ghastly reanimates a bunch of other Pokemon corpses as a zombie army using the fog from its body, which is clearly a
JoJo's reference!
Kids watching this. A Mankey fighting JoJo reference. And it's not the only one. Toward the end of the Team Rocket story arc, when the Poke Terror taken over Saffron City, Blue uses his Golduck's psychic powers Hermit Purple style to project Team Rocket's location onto his Pokedex
It's always
screen.
JoJo's.
And what's displayed is a screenshot from the actual video
Whoa!
game, which is goddamn brilliant because other times we see the Pokedex has the same display as the Pokedex in the games. During the fight with the Team Rocket gym leaders that follows this, Green hides 2 Pokeballs in her shirt, pretending they're titties, and uses them to surprise attack Sabrina. This was censored for the English release, so instead she just cattily insults Sabrina's looks and social skills, and the diss is so brutal that it ruins her concentration. Which is kind of better, almost? You might have incredible psychic powers, but do you have ice for that burn? In another bit, Blaine tracks down Mewtwo using a psychic link that he has with the Pokemon because he used his own DNA to create it. Another side effect of this is that he has a massive tumor on his arm that is slowly eating his body and that will kill him if he doesn't stop Mewtwo. Again, a lot of this might sound wildly out of place in the context of Pokemon as we understand it today, but it's all rooted in themes and ideas present in the original game.
This
Pokemon
sounds so
always
good!
flirted with concepts like psychic powers and genetic engineering. Adventures just filters those through the lens of older stories that explored them, like a kid-friendly version of JoJo or Akira. Also, Pokeballs have always looked like glorious Opie, that's an objective fact. Still, I'm glad that they didn't censor the other more adult aspects of the story, because Adventures is one of those rare works aimed at kids that manages to address more serious subject matter in a really effective manner. Most obviously, it invites readers to consider how industrialization can destroy or change our environment, and calls into question the ethics of animal testing. I think framing this commentary around Pokemon, which kids are already more inclined to care about and empathize with than regular
real animals, yeah,
means it has a better chance of landing its message. Now, pollution bad, harmony with environment good isn't exactly the most revolutionary or nuanced statement in the world, and it can easily come across as preachy if it's overplayed, but Adventures handles it about as well as any of the early Ghibli films do.
Wow,
and that
so
I can
pretty.
make that comparison at all speaks to the quality of storytelling we're dealing with here. Of course, none of that would amount to much if the series didn't also capture the core appeal of Pokemon, the monsters themselves. Red's Pokemon, starting with a friendly Poliwhirl, a shy but playful Bulbasaur, and a sassy Pikachu that he picks up in the first few chapters, have distinctive personalities, and their group dynamic is always changing as his team grows and he swaps out members. A few, like Pikachu, Eevee, and Gyarados, even go through mini character arcs of their own.
That's cool.
Likewise, his rivals' Pokemon have their own charm to them, and to an extent their personalities reflect those of their trainers. Blue's Pokemon are all very serious, go-getter types as a result of their rigorous training regimen, while Green's are a little bit more mischievous. On occasion, the manga even plays with one of my favorite tropes from the anime, telling entirely wordless stories about the trainers' Pokemon playing together and getting caught up in their own misadventures. There is a lot more to it, but if all you want from a Pokemon manga is to see Pokemon being adorable, you will be more than satisfied with this one. Beyond the Pokemon, and true to its English subtitle, Adventures also shows a lot of love to the trainers as characters. They're appealing heroes and anti-heroes from the moment we meet them, and the same can be said for trainers in the anime, but what sets Adventures apart is the way that its characters are allowed to change and grow in significant, meaningful ways as a result of their experiences.
That's cool.
The rivalry between Red and Blue in the manga isn't just an excuse to set up a series of gradually evolving grudge matches with the same two guys who hate each other. It's a defining part of both of their character arcs. When we finally get to the Indigo League, it's clearly laid out how the two have learned from each other and become both better trainers and better people, and we see all of the steps of the journey to get there.
Character
and
progression,
what the
my
series does
god.
with Green around the same time is kind of beautiful, honestly. The anime has a lot of trouble delivering character growth like this because, well, Ash is the anchor of an incredibly lucrative ongoing TV show and movie franchise. It's risky to change him.
Yeah, you can't do that now.
Is able
It's
to get
way
around
too
this by
late.
emulating one of my favorite aspects of the games. You know how awesome it was to ascend Mount Silver and Gold and Silver only to come face to face with Red himself? Adventures takes that cool feeling and runs with it, passing the torch to a new protagonist with each new generation, and even with mid-generation updates like Yellow and Crystal. With their own goals accomplished, the heroes of past arcs end up becoming supporting characters.
I like stuff like that, that's awesome.
Crossing paths with their predecessors while on their own journeys, or even taking on the role of mentors. Sometimes they even trade with each other. And I think this is especially cool. Whenever Nintendo releases a remake of past generations, Hidenori Kusaka uses it as an excuse to put those old heroes back in the spotlight for new adventures with the new cast. This JoJo-esque generational approach to storytelling has kept Adventures going, and going strong from what I've read, for over 20 years now. Each new arc makes a perfect jumping-on point for new readers, which is really good since new kids are discovering Pokemon all the time, while the callbacks to past storylines reward longtime fans for keeping up. And that's far from the only reward this series offers. Pokemon Adventures is easy reading, as manga goes, but it's also immensely rewarding. It hides a surprising amount of depth behind that accessible exterior, and in spite of the Viz Kids branding on the cover, it's not afraid to go to darker places and really test its characters. But it never crosses the line into purely adult fare. It still embodies the naive, optimistic spirit of the Pokemon franchise perfectly. Perhaps even better than other iterations, because it's able to contrast that spirit with those darker elements. It also captures and preserves the world of the early Pokemon games in a way that's a lot more accessible for folks who want to revisit it or see what it was like for the first time than a series of clunky, bodged-together 8-bit handheld RPGs could ever really be. I loved this manga as a kid, and in revisiting it, I was a bit worried that it might not be so good without nostalgia goggles on, but it's remarkable just how well it
Stands
holds up.
out.
If
Cool.
you love Pokemon even a little bit, I think you are going to love reading adventures. And you have plenty of options if you want to do so. You can buy complete physical collections of each game arc on Amazon
cool.
for pretty cheap. Links in the doobly-doo if you're interested. And for those who prefer digital reading, Viz has the ebooks of the series up through black and white available on various platforms, including their own.
Babe, it's my birthday soon.
Personally, I'm a sucker for Pokemon, but it came to my attention as I was writing this script that Nuxtaku has done a few videos about Pokemon manga as well, so if you're in the mood to learn a bit more about the series while you wait for your volumes to arrive, check those out in the doobly-doo. While you're down there, if you have read the series already,
Giving a shout out
let me
to
know
old
which adventures
Nuxtaku,
generation is your favorite and why, and don't forget to do all the YouTube things. I'm Jeff Thu, professional shitbag,
Signing out from my mother's basement. Cool, that looks awesome. Doesn't that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Sounds awesome. And it's my birthday in like 2 weeks.
Oh, of course it is.
Yeah, it is. So, yeah. That's cool. I really like it. It just made sense. It was a really cool way of telling the story of the game in like a more adult, realistic kind of way. I'd watch that. If that was an anime, I would watch that. But then I don't think it would sell, considering the anime has been going for
Yeah, it won't
how
do so
long?
well
No.
compared to that anime.
My god. But yeah, cool. That looked pretty damn awesome. So thank you guys very much for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what you want to discuss in future videos, and I'll see you guys. So you guys next time.